Ayubowan, you are most welcome to Dhammahadaya, the English Dhamma discussion. We are all shaped by our thoughts. We are actually what we think. So if we be with a pure mind, happiness and joyfulness follow us like the shadow that never leaves. So that those were the words of the Buddha. And with that food for thought, I thought of commencing our program today. So for our program, before I introduce today's theme, I'll introduce the resource personnel who of course are no strangers to you, but for those who are with us for the first time, let me introduce Professor Ravi Koggalage. He is the former Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic of Sir John Kothalavala Defence University. He's an engineer, and but I would call him a meditation teacher with overseas experience. So we warmly welcome you to Dhammahadaya, and then we move on to Mr. Vipula Wanigasekera. He's a former senior diplomat, Director General of Sri Lanka Tourism. He's the Chief Executive of the Convention Bureau and now Senior Lecturer at the National School of Business Management in Tourism, Marketing and Event Management. He is also the proud author of the book Pointers to Enlightenment, which sort of led him, which made him more interested in taking meditation sessions, kind of. He's a meditation teacher, especially for the tourists who visit our island. So we warmly welcome you to today's Dhammahadaya. So with both of these gentlemen, we intend to talk about a sutra, a very special sutra, which is called Ananda Sutra. Now, first of all, I would like to turn on to Mr. Vipula Wanigasekera. Sir, I would like you to describe this Ananda Sutra because there was, it is somewhat special, and it is also sometimes strange because there was an instance that the Buddha did not answer the person Vachagota, whom was not answered by the Buddha. So this is a special sutra, and I would like you to describe this.
Yes, this sutra implies several significant areas in Buddhist philosophy, and in a nutshell what happened was this wanderer Vachagota came to Lord Buddha and asked the question, is there a self? Because at that time there were several schools of thoughts, and one faction was advocating that there is this permanent soul, Atman, that travels towards eternity, and that was the belief of one faction. And there was another faction, and they were following the belief that it is annihilation, so there's nothing, after death, everything comes to an end, including your consciousness or everything. So Vachagota came and asked, is there a self? And Lord Buddha's answer was silence, and he did not respond. Then after a while he asked, is there a no self? And once again Lord Buddha's response was negative, and he did not answer. So he waited for a while and he got up and left. Then
so the Buddha did not answer either question, both of them?
Neither of the questions. And then after the Vachagota had left, Venerable Ananda Thero came to Lord Buddha and said, Lord, why you didn't answer any of those questions, and surely you could have responded to. And that was a question which is everyone is talking about, and there are so many beliefs. And then Lord Buddha said, if I had said, yes, there is self, then I am conforming to those who believe that there is a Atman or a soul that continues towards eternity, and therefore I couldn't say yes. And then if I had said there is no self, I am conforming to those who are believing that everything comes to an end. So the answer is neither of that. So therefore, because of this issue of the language, and that can make Vacchagotta into another belief, whatever the answer the Lord Buddha would have given, because Vacchagotta was not in a position to probably embrace a discourse at that time. So that would have been the ideal thing from the point of view of Lord Buddha, to keep silence. So silence itself was an answer. So that's the beauty of that. So the second significance of this sutra is that it deals with the core message of Buddhist philosophy, that is finding yourself, and go into that, investigate, and that encourages people to probe into this aspect of who you are and what you are, and that is the other significant factor in the Buddhist philosophy.
Okay. Professor, do you have anything to add into that?
Yes, one important point is this is one way of Buddha's answering questions. Just
Silence.
keep quiet, yes.
Okay.
There are reasons behind that, as Vipula explained. If we give the answer like yes or no, the people hearing that may get confused, right? So at the same time, we should not forget during that time, India, there were 62 different beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And they are explained in Brahmajala Sutta.
Yes.
So
Digha Nikaya, I think. Digha Nikaya Brahmacharya
yes,
Sutra.
that's right. It's a very long
discourse.
because explaining all 62 wrong beliefs during that time. So they are mainly fall into two categories. One is this Shaswata or Atma Drushti. The other one is the Uchcheda, nothing existing.
Yeah, Shashvata is something like belief in eternalism, where
right.
the soul is forever.
That's
and
right.
when you say Uchcheda, it is like the soul will end after this birth
nothing
itself.
exists after death.
Nothing exists after death.
Something like that.
Yes.
So those are the two main extremes.
Okay.
So different levels of them, you know, because of that there were 62 different beliefs. So if Buddha has answered yes or no, very easily get into one of those 62 beliefs. Since Buddhism not fall into any of those. This should be the way to answer, right? Unless one see this paticca samuppada, the what Buddha had explained, the theory of cause and effect and paticca samuppanna nature, no one would understand this. So this Anattha concept, so Buddhism it says Anichcha Dukka Anaththa. So sometimes we see the translation, it's like non-self or something like that, but there's something go deep in that when we consider the paticca samuppanna nature. So one has to understand that to you know, understand this Anattha concept. Otherwise very easily you may fall into one of those two extremes. For example, when we meditate, we start with our body. So in this body, we start with there's a person or myself, right? To get rid of that, there are different methods. One example would be breaking this into 32 parts.
Okay.
Right?
The physical body.
Physical body.
Okay.
Just to see whether there's a person existing. Then you come up with the conclusion, no, nothing. So that is another extreme. It is not the paticca samuppanna nature.
Okay.
Perhaps we can talk about that later on.
Yeah. Yes, so as the discussion is getting, I think, very interesting, I would also like to ask now, this sutra is called the Ananda Sutra. Why is it called the Ananda Sutra?
From the terminology itself, because it is Venerable Ananda Thero who made this question. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come to light. The very fact that Venerable Ananda Thero went and questioned Lord Buddha as to why he could not.
Yes, I think Buddha has answered the questions raised by Venerable Ananda.
Venerable Ananda,
not
so
the
Vachagota. So
right.
therefore, it is appropriately named as Ananda Sutra. Of course, there are other Ananda Sutras as well. So this is what exactly. But I think what is important in this is that once again, as I said before, it deals with the core philosophy of Buddhism, if you call it Buddhism. That is, self, no self, and that leads people to a self-inquiry and investigation, and that is what is expected of those who are interested in Buddhist philosophy, to go into this inquiry, whether they are going to get indulged in various meditation techniques or whether they are going to seek knowledge from various philosophers, or whatever the method that you are adopting. Finally, what you are doing is this investigation, and that is what matters. And Buddhism is probably the only philosophy which gives you that freedom, because you are not urged to believe anything. So every other religion has that. You start with a belief and then you go along with that. And Lord Buddha said, don't believe anything, and that itself gives anyone the freedom to enter an investigation or spiritual seeking, if you may call it. And that this kind of a sutra does help, because it gives you a clue. If it is not this, what is it? If it is not that, what is it? Because finally, it is not a knowledge that is imparted from one to another, and that is not the realization. So it leads to, although Lord Buddha's response is that I didn't answer Vachagota because it would have led him to a belief, but on the other hand, it also opens up someone's mind to go into that critical analysis, and that is Buddhist philosophy. You analyze yourself, you analyze the world, you analyze everything that you, and just see whether is that what you are truly experiencing. And that's really how Lord Buddha, being the greatest orator ever lived, used the language from time to time, depending on the characteristic of persons. Because sometimes it would have been absolutely useless to explain that to Vachagota, because he would have just, and there were occasions where Lord Buddha had to reprimand some people, they repeat what Lord Buddha has said and they go and say there is nothing, You hear something from Lord Buddha, they go out and they interpret in their own way. So Lord Buddha was very careful, depending on the predominant characteristics of various people. He opted to use similes, examples, and some sutras are very short, as you know, and he is one of those, and that's good enough for some people who would not like to simply follow belief, but try to understand it through various perspectives towards finding freedom.
Professor
This
Ravi,
also give us like the Western way of thinking. So they are mainly based on yes and no answers. But in Buddhism, there are answers not fall into those two extremes. And sometimes Buddha has answered like yes or no, or give direct answer. But he had different ways of answering. For example, sometimes instead of answering, he might ask another question.